We are going to begin the funeral service for Mr. Neal Barg. If you have a cell phone, I'd ask you kindly to place it in the silent mode at this time or turn it completely off. I'd also like to welcome everybody via live stream. On behalf of the family, thank you very much for attending also. Services will be conducted by family friend David Jacobson. He's going to start with the ancient tradition of cutting of the kriya. So if we could have the family please rise.
Ladies and gentlemen, we begin this morning with the words of the 23rd Psalm. We could read together. They're in your service folder. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevorach. God is given and God is taken away. Praise be the name of God. From the High Holiday Liturgy, we read, birth is a beginning and death a destination. For life is a journey, a going, a growing, from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. We read from Ecclesiastes, for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent, and now a time to speak. And it's at this time I invite Howard, Dan, Janet, and Rachel, in that order, to speak about Neal.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for coming. I first wanted to speak for two of Neal's friends, and the first one was Gary Becker, lifelong friend of his. He wanted me to pass this along, that he met Neal in junior high school and quickly became lifelong friends. During our high school years, we developed a friendly rivalry. I believe it started when we played handball at the J. Ultimately, in our teens, we started a landscaping business together. The rivalry here was like Neal, he just always joke around and with everybody and used to argue who had the best lawnmower. The rivalry here was arguing back and forth on it. And Neal had a lawn boy, he had a Toro, which I still think is better. Even in our 60s, the lawnmower debate always gave us a good laugh. Although I moved to Nevada over 20 years ago, we spoke on the phone, and there was always a point in conversation when we reminisced about some goofy experiences we had, whether it was playing cards with the boys, sailing at Diamond Lake, or golfing, to name a few. After I moved, our phone calls were not as frequent enough. However, when we did talk, we could jump right in. Laughing always made the conversation memorable. That is what I'll miss most, being able to pick up the phone and just call. When you know someone for most of your life, we often wrongly assume they'll always be there. So when they leave us, we immediately feel the void and pain. There will be no more calls, no reminiscing, no laughs. Thankfully, our memories of Neal will always endure. He was a great friend in good times and bad. Over the years, our small group of friends gave each other nicknames. One of Neal's nicknames was my boy. Don't ask, I have no recollection where it came from. So Neal, my boy, see you on the other side. Until we meet again, rest in peace. And that was from Gary Becker. And the second friend, really good friend, and all these guys became good friends with myself as I got older. This is from Carl and Sherry, and just a few words they wanted me to pass along. Suddenly, we lost our dear friend Neal, which was unbelievable and shocking. I've known him for over 50 years, meeting him back at Northern Illinois University. He was the straight guy in our very close group of friends, Dave, Gary, Neal, and me. He would be the designated driver who we all knew we can trust to get us home. We had a common bond of trust and closeness, and we were always there for each other. He was a cerebral and serious guy in the group, being an avid reader and always tried to give us advice. He was an excellent athlete, being a strong swimmer, biker, and skier, as it was next to impossible to try and keep up with him. He owned a sailboat and took us on evening excursions in Lake Michigan, watching over us while we were working hard, doing all the things to get us out of the harbor and out on the lakefront and back safely, while the rest of us were leisurely just sitting around doing nothing but laughing. He was definitely a kibitzer, as we never knew if he was kidding or serious. He actually introduced me to the game of pickleball. At first, I thought he was joking and not to be believed. However, he was serious, and we took lessons together at Lake Bluff Park District, which I have been playing now for over 9 years. He would tease our kids and take away a toy and later give it back. He had a crazy laugh, even if it wasn't funny. As far as a host of our poker games, he attempted to impress us with his home-cooked meal, calling it turkey surprise. It definitely was a surprise when he didn't turn out so well, which we never let him forget about. We never could find a good snack to munch on, as he was always health conscious. And heaven forbid us if we turned up the thermostat. I can still attest to that on that one. As we froze in his house during the winter months. That's so true. Okay. However, an amusing quality he had was giving a wonderful disposition and patience to listen. If you had a problem or concern, he was caring and tried to be helpful with ideas and support. Second that too. We will all miss him and just can't believe we lost such a close, dear friend, as we recently celebrated our birthdays, turning 70 these past few months. Hopefully he's in a better world without pain, but we're at such a loss and will be missed dearly. Love, Carl and Sherry. I want to thank Carl and Sherry and Gary Becker for those nice words. And, you know, being his brother, first, I just want to thank everybody for coming. And I really mean it. I could talk about Neal for a year here, but to make more impact, I figured I'd just divide it in like 4 or 5 different segments. You know, I just want to talk about me and the family and him, and then about him, just how he cared for people, and mix in a few fun stories, and just wrap up with a message I know we'd want you to have. First, I just really want to thank everybody for being here. especially people that came in from out of town and to celebrate his life, and people I see in the back with wearing the patrol jackets and the bike club. And I can't tell you how much it meant to him. And I know he'd be thrilled you're here, and it makes me really feel good. All the messages people have been giving me, just helping out a rough week, people that came, took off from work and so on. So I got to tell you, the other person, Rachel, thanks so much. I mean, I'd be lost without you in general, but especially this week. So she's the best. I just truly hit the jackpot with two wonderful parents and the best brother a person could have. As an older brother, Neal provided me with guidance and wisdom. He was a mentor, a true mentor that served me well. He was my go-to person to discuss all matters of life, ranging from family, friends, relationships, all kinds of work topics. He provided honest and thoughtful answers in a real meaningful way. Neal gave me a great balance for me to look up to: hard work, integrity, honesty, and really enjoying life. It kind of all started out growing up when we were little kids, just 3.5 years difference. We shared a bedroom. We would make forts by just opening up our dressers, putting sheets in there, and just going crazy. We were having a good time. As we grew up, we got into the Scouts, the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts. But you know what really kind of determined us, our forward future, was always in sports activities. We love sports, and it really became an integral life. We did the Little League and basketball, and we did some skiing, and then Dad managed many of the baseball teams we're on. And I could tell you a funny anecdote about the sports. I got a couple good stories. My dad had worked at Channel 26, and that was before the U. They just had the stock market show. So my dad was basically selling advertising. He pinched it a little bit, did some announcing on there. So he was able to get a press pass. And in those days, the Bulls, the Sox, they weren't drawing, it was before Michael Jordan. So my dad would get this pass, and we'd go in there. And one time we were able to sit actually on the floor underneath the basket. Neal came up with this idea. He says, we have these rinky-dink cameras. We put them around our neck. Neal says, don't worry, we don't even need film in them. So here we are. Can you imagine nowadays doing that? We're sitting underneath the basket, and all of a sudden, no film, nothing, and in those days, you had like Jerry Sloan and all those guys coming. And finally, one of the photographers, caught us out on it because he sees us, just cameras you probably get, in those days of Walgreens or something. So that was really a fun moment. Only Neal could think of that idea. So we used to go to a lot of the games, and it was quite a bit of fun. In those days, we'd go to all the sporting events, the Cubs, the Sox. I mean, we'd see, like I said, we'd see like Jerry Sloan, Norm Van Leer, Tom Borwinkle. We'd be playing Chamberlain, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Goodrich. It was just crazy fun we had. And then it went on after that by himself to really get into some serious skiing, some boating, kayaking, bicycling. And his schedule, I met some nice people already from the ski club, and I'm telling you, everything was revolved around a schedule with that stuff. To this very day, if you want to do something, he had to check his calendar, see what route he was on for biking, and see when he had to go volunteer with the ski patrol. So that was such an integral part of what he did. He did a yearly canoe race down into Des Plaines River, which just loved it, right? And just great. And everybody just loved hanging with him on that. As far as his career goes, he did executive search, talent recruitment for over 40 years. And he worked for a lot of Fortune 500 companies. And he was just a great worker with that. I mean, until he retired a few years ago, even then, companies would call him to hire him. In a day and age when people get thrown out when they're 40 years old, he looked so good and so fit. He was working in the 60s. They probably all thought he was, 35, 40 years old. So he maintained a really, really good network of people and worked really hard, did well. And he was proud of it. And I know he affected so many lives, hiring them, and their families benefited. So I'm really proud of him for that. And as far as something personal on him, I could tell you're not going to find a more caring person for what he did for me. We'd talk, whether it was family matters, whatever. He was just so conscious and he really cared. I mean, he just friends of friends, their kids, my relatives, their kids, he would just pull them aside and coach them on how to put a resume together, how to interview. He did it countless people, just strangers, anybody. He was just that kind of guy. And he really made people laugh. He was a jokester, like his friends had written previous notes I read. And he loved his cars, talk, right story. It was always the Subaru versus the Honda. He always figured he had it best. He just, and in reality, he was always right. So it was always right. I know that we planned stuff and he was a planner. He was a real planner. Sometimes we'd make surprise party through the years for my folks. And I got to the point, we're going back and forth. And I got to the point in life, I said, Neal, whatever you want to do, I'll do it. Never again did I ever discuss stuff I'm at. Because he was always right. And it was his way and he was right. So he was great that way. He was real meticulous with how he did everything. His house is like a museum. You get everything lined up, right? And people that know, you go into his house, we went into his medicine cabinet, he's got everything lined up. The labels are all facing the right way. So he was a real meticulous planner, everything. And he was just so thorough on everything. He was unbelievable that way. And I got another couple good stories about how he would just always look for values. When it came to spending, he wanted everything had to be this and that. He loved Panera Bread. Matter of fact, we put a 25% coupon right in there for him. He's got it. So he liked it. He's gonna be getting it. He's gonna be getting it all. But I know right now he's right up there right now at Costco. He's got the chicken. He used to go, Howard, I can get 4 meals out of this, So I know right now he's with mom and dad. He's going, look, we can divide it up. They got the 4. He's got one for you, one for you, one for you. And I know Neal saved the 4th one for me. Until that time, you saved it for me. And what I'd like to do for Neal is just keep the name going and do what he would want to do. And I promise Neal that I'll be paying it forward. And I know he used to always help the young people, and I intend to do that for him. And just try to teach people. He always was trying to teach people life's lessons, learn from failing, learn, more importantly, to have fun, and just learn to laugh. And I know that's what he wants me to do, and I'll do it for him. Finally, I just want to tell everybody that 4 days ago, I never thought I'd be here in a million years. I never thought it. I just can't believe it. We talked about every day, literally every day, for hours a week, from any topic from A to Z. And you know what? It's important for you all to take away this. People all week have been asking me, what can you do for me? Anything you can do. And, what you can do? What you can do is what Neal does and what he's told me to do all the time. Toward the end of my mom's life, she said to Neal, do what makes you happy. So you know what I want you all to do? Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy and enjoy your life. Finally, again, Neal, thank you for everything. Everything you did for me, for your friends, your family, mom, dad, all your cousins, everybody. And everybody you touched. The dogs, everything. We had 7 dogs, all named Princes. He loved them. He was truly a giant with a really, really generous soul. I love you, Neal.
Wow, I had an 8-minute speech all fixed out in here and worked on it so much last night. I just found on looking at my iPad, it disappeared. So Neal, here it goes. Wow. 58 years of friendship. And I don't just say, Neal, we always called Neal Barg. I don't know, my kids, everybody, my wife, all of us. Years ago, when we had our first jobs together, just, my cousin and I are and Howard and Neil are in the back seat of your dad's car. And we're sitting there talking about our lawn mowing business that we had. And Howard and Neil started asking all these questions. Howard wanted to just do it. Neil's the detailed guys, wanted to know all the details, all about it. And they started their own lawn business. And Howard, we got to think, thanks to that conversation, you became a very successful, landscape architect. Really, really good. With all the jobs that we had together, going through high school, we worked the stacking the books, summertime. It's just that we were so good about doing things. An 8-hour job took us 4 hours, and we go and party somewhere else or crash or do something the other 4 hours. It was just really a blast. Skiing on here is that we skied when we were young, and that mountain over there. I know you guys are all from Wilmot. We used to ski at a place called Holiday Park. And at Holiday Park, those press passes were unbelievable because they'd get us in with the press pass. I had my aunt, my uncle, my cousins, everybody. It included the skis, the parts, the poles, everything. And you do all that work to get there, but it only took 30 seconds to get down the hill. And, but then he and I got very competitive throughout the years. And when we talk about skiing on here is that, Whistler Mountain, when it first opened up, just the first couple of weeks, we went out there with our ski club, the Hustler Ski Club. And with the hustlers out there is that we get there, there's no snow. And we're freaking out because of that. But you took 3 chairlifts up to the top and you finally hit snow. So we refused to sit back. We still did some skiing. But in the middle of the week that we were there, Neil and I took a day off and rented some cross-country skis. And we found this mountain a little ways away. And we got into this competitive mode. It's like, cross country, you're working, going uphill. And for 3 solid hours, we competed, going, not stopping, getting up to the top. We're in the middle of nowhere. We get to the top up there, and there's all these TV cameras up there thinking, what are they doing? Hanging at this thing. And so only to find out later, when we got back to the chalet where all the hustlers, 50 hustlers are, they all cheered us on. I'm saying, what's going on? Well, we were on national Canadian TV. They were building support about not building a logging camp up there. And then part of the thing was they dubbed in there saying, look, they're even coming from Chicago to down there. It was this, we did so many ski trips together, like with the hustlers. Is that, one of our trips, I remember we took this 12-hour bus ride because it was a snowstorm to get to Michigan. We get to the place there, and then you skiers out there, when it's cold, it was 20 degrees below zero. The wind was blowing, the snow was going. Out of the 50 people that came, 43 of them stayed and partied, but Neil and I and 4 others went out and skied that day. And it's just, maybe we couldn't feel our fingers, my hearts, or anything. But I'll tell you, we did it, and we were probably fools because by the time we got inside the hut to get warm, we couldn't feel our face, fingers, anything. Camping. Boy, we went on so many camping trips. Thanks to your dad would drop Neil and I off in the middle of a campground somewhere that were all sold out. And Howard and your dad are such good talkers. It always got us a spot. And we were able to go in there and go sail or go swim. And it was always fun that we always thought about. Now, how interesting, you talked about those press passes. Boy, I was one of the recipients of it. Going to a Sox game, and at the Sox where Neil and I are standing in the front row by the dugout over there. And we're just looking at it before the game starts, and the usher's starting to walk up, and we're going, oh man, careful. He's going to kick us out. And it's like our hearts are pounding. And the guy comes over and says, hey, I know you're part of the press. Do you want me to open the gate and let you on the field? It's like, oh, and it's funny how you talked about the Bulls. Went to a Bulls game. I'm at many Bulls games, but with the press on there, here we are, 13-year-olds getting up in the private press box where the press are. And all the press people are kicked off that 13-year-olds are doing in there. Well, we wanted the free Cokes and we got them. And you talked about the basket. I got ours too. You know, we just walked up to the basket to watch this, sat down under the game. Neal's got his camera, and here's one of these professional photographers next to us. What kind of camera is? Neal's all smart. This is my brand new Instamatic. Second City, wax museums in Chicago. Those press passes, they got us in everything. You know, it's like, you know, your dad was so proud to give that, you know, and get your, to get those passes for all. Skiing. Oh, I still, you know, I guess so many trips with the Hustler Ski Club, that it was, he and I always competed back and forth. I don't know if they still have those NASCAR races, you know, then they have the gates where you go in and out. Well, we always competed back and forth going on this. And one of them, Neal was so excited that he had such a good time on the NASCAR race. And I go, oh no, now, because he always tried to be one step ahead of me. So I had to work my butt, you know, to stay up with him. And so my time was really good, only to find out later the timer was really broke. And we were plastered on peppermint schnapps. And we wouldn't have known the difference one way or another. You know, that just, when I first met my wife, our second date, we went camping with Neal and his lady at that time. And that's up in Door County. And when we're going camping out there, we took the sailboat out, and we were going to take them up Lake Michigan a little bit, you know, through Door County. And the girls say, "Where's the map?" And Neal and I says, "We don't need no map. You know, who needs that kind of stuff?" Well, turns out we overshot our destination by about 15 miles. It got cold. I mean, really cold. We got whitecaps coming back. It got dark. The boat started getting full of water, and we're all bailing and bailing and bailing. You know, which should have been probably, you know, I think Gilligan's Island, you know, a 2-hour tour. You know, this was going on about 8 or 9 hours already, and it's late at night. It's cold. We can't do anything. I'm afraid my wife's never going to talk, or she was my girlfriend, never talk to me again. But we finally get back to the car, and the key, our fingers, none of us could turn the key. We were so cold, you know, from doing that. Somebody else came and opened our doors for us, and somehow we got back and warmed up back at our tents. Always so excited whenever Neal came to town. I'm in California, and in California, because I left here 40 years ago, and we always kept on saying, Neal Barg is coming to town. Oh, the kids are getting all excited. Well, Neal comes in, the kids take him off, and I don't see him for 3 days. Only to find out he kept giving them quarters, you know, and they still remember it to this day. You know, every function, every party, every surprise party, Neal always showed up for it. He was always there. You know, and it's like, wow, you know, our 30-year anniversary party, you know, and I know he had certain things going on. Neal, you know, and then certain things happening back here in the family, but Neal still showed. You know, it was a surprise. He always came. And, you know, we rode our bikes a lot. Man, like, we didn't ride bikes so much when we were kids, but we did it later on in life. You know, just the hills in California. I mentioned a couple of you guys in the bike club out there, is that he told me, you know, you guys do some kind of hills here, but he really got to ride the hills in Orange County. You know, we had like 3,000 climbing feet, 3,500 climbing feet in a ride in a day. And, you know, on a 50-mile ride, you know, he was a trooper, you know, because we ride all year round. I know you guys only have so many months out of the year, but in the middle of January, you know, when he probably hadn't been riding for a couple months, he did it, you know, and, you know, just here, you know, when I came to visit him here, riding your route out here. It was really fun. I guess, I checked it with my Garmin. It was still about 1,800 climbing feet. So you guys still get some, something out there. But I'll tell you, when Howard called me the other day and I hear the distraught in his voice, and I'm thinking to myself, shoot, I'm trying not to say the other word, but don't say it. And he said it, and just, man, it's just really just sat back. So we never thought the guy that was so healthy, so fit, ate so well, that something like this could happen. Just so many memories throughout the years. Guys, I could go for hours of all the things we did. And even though we did as kids, we still kept it going these last 40 years. And, Howard, we always referred to Howard as Little Howard. And Howard, I got his permission. I can still tell you guys about it. Just Neal, I got to tell you, Neal's he's like a brother from a different mother. But we love you, buddy. We'll miss you. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was a writer. I couldn't bear to write this. Oh my God, you do it real before. Whoa, you're doing great. Whoa. Okay. Yeah. I didn't think I'd be winging this. Okay.
Hey, you want to go on this side?
Which side?
You will join me. Hi, as somebody who's a writer, I didn't write anything. I thought, how can I do this? All I could say is I've known Neal for 4.5 years, and never did I meet anybody who impacted my life the way he did, who graced my life the way he did. Yeah, sometimes we bumped heads because Neal was very strong-willed, but always cared. I remember saying to him, he'd be like, well, Janet, I really care about you. And I would think, well, do you love me? What can I tell you about him? Neal walked with me. I didn't always have this. But I will mention that I have MS, and I didn't even really I was really coming to grips with it because, yes, I ran and all those things, but music, I'm an actress, an equity actress, a bunch of stuff. And I'm doing this extemporaneously. Neal was very, very encouraging. We butt heads a lot. He liked to talk about music, and I'd be like, no, Neal. But he would talk about your father, and he always mentioned your dad and how your dad loved music, and your dad was a great singer. So we would sing his songs. Neal was like the kindest person. He was cute, but and we cooked a lot. I cooked for him. No, Neal is not a cook. Kate is this is my daughter, Kate, and he was very much a part of her life as well. You want to say something, hon?
Sure. Yeah. And you did well. I think, not preparing a speech, there's so many things on your mind to say, but I will say, Neal has been in my life quite a lot for the past 4 years. When their relationship started, it was kind of the beginning of the pandemic, and I had just graduated from school. I was living at home, and we were like a little, quarantine group. So we had dinners together. He drove us everywhere you could go to around the North Shore, and he had the most.
Chicago, excuse me for interjecting. I'm originally from New York, and your brother could have been the spokesperson for Chicago.
He really could have. I learned so much, and I've been living here my whole life. So, but I did feel a lot of comfort with him being there. When you're quarantining, you really kind of slow down. And I feel like we kind of all did that together. And we had so many wonderful times together, from, bike riding together in the summer. He was so great with my mom, and we would, go on all these little adventures. And he was always there.
For 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to say that I said to him, I'm sorry, that, I know I really liked him. He was the first person that I let into my life in a long time, because I was widowed. I remember saying to him, I really want to see you more. I couldn't believe I was saying that. And he said, well, I'm very busy. But somehow we might have been unlikely, but we were great together. That's all I could say. You want to say more?
Oh, definitely. I mean, well, it kind of gave me a little bit of relief there, in a sense, because, they were so happy together. And for I hadn't, to see the two of them together was something else. I mean, they would just spend hours together, and, watching different YouTube videos of old
and then
movies,
and me singing all the stuff, because a lot of them were the shows that I've done.
Well, regardless, it was wonderful to see the both of them so happy and having that in my life. And I want to just say that, Howard mentioned how Neal was always there for, everyone when it came to just wanting to give the best advice, wanting to offer his knowledge. And, he was there for me for a lot of different moments in my life. So when I graduated,
Sorry.
when I was graduated, I, had to find a job during COVID, and, the job market wasn't so great, but he really worked with me on my resume.
College.
I had just graduated college. And he was just always there for me throughout the years when it came to issues I was having at work, how to navigate different situations. He was just, the first person to encourage me, and just, he was always there for me. So, and that's just one example. He's always gone out of his way to just be a great person. And I'm sure everyone has different versions of that, but I'll really miss him. So.
Wow. Well, I miss him.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But I never knew your parents, but I feel like I knew them because of your brother. And we would always say, it's too bad that your father and my father couldn't speak, because I think that your father and my father would have liked each other.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
what can I say is that you're all great being here, and I just hope that I just hope that, Neal, I hope you know how much I loved you and how much I always will.
Yeah. All right.
Want to hold my hand?
Yeah. I got you.
Okay, you're going to be fine. Oh, da-da-da-da. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm the wrap up. Okay. In honor of Neal, I'm going to tell you a long, detailed, technically specific story from Neal. There may be questions afterwards. I was having a work problem and trying to control myself while dealing with a troublesome client. Neal happened to call me, and I shared the situation with him, thinking he might provide some insight and wisdom. This anecdote happened early in his career when he was working in-house running the HR department. He had interviewed applicants for some job openings, and one candidate filed a complaint with senior management accusing him of discrimination because the candidate had dyslexia. Upon learning of this, Neal asked to speak to the candidate because he was sure there had been a misunderstanding. Neal patiently explained his selection process to the candidate, gave him strategies to help him with his job search, and was just kind to him. He wasn't threatened or defensive. Neal advised that he shouldn't use his dyslexia to threaten employers to give him a job, because he was actually better suited for a higher paying job with better prospects for promotion. Then Neal worked with him, showing him how to go about achieving that professional goal. In the end, the candidate was grateful, withdrew his complaint, and told Neal that he had helped him so much. He apologized for troubling him. For those of us who are fortunate to know Neal, we know how generous he was with his time and his knowledge. In this instance, he used his kindness and compassion to help someone who may have wanted to hurt him. He took the opportunity to show him how to take a better approach. Neal's example reminded me to be more patient and kind with difficult people. It's a difficult lesson, but in his honor, I endeavor to be able to do better in the future. And now something shorter. This is from me. As most of you know, Neal was Howard's big brother. I used to call him Brother Neal. He was a quintessential big brother, always there to look out for Howard, beginning most conversations with, "Hey, How?" Ho, ho, ho. When I met Howard, I was very surprised by this sweet and affectionate relationship with his brother. In fact, it was what made me fall in love with him. Neal was so generous with me, welcoming me to the Barg family and trusting me with his beloved little brother. I will be forever grateful for his acceptance and stamp of approval. He became the big brother I always wanted but never had, showing me the joys of a well-organized refrigerator. I hope to take good care of his most precious little brother to Neal's high standards. Thank you, Neal. I love you. And until we meet again, I wish you all the smooth rides, pristine slopes, and lean chicken breasts, low salt, no oil with salad, plus organic air popped popcorn.
What beautiful words from the family and friends. This Shabbat is the last book of Shemot. There are 5 books in the Torah, and this is about Vayikel Pekudei. And it speaks about really the last portion of building the Mishkan, of building the temporary dwelling place for God and the Jews as they were going through the desert. It's been 5 weeks in the Torah portion where it was very meticulous about how high the walls were, how long, the colors, everything was very meticulous. Like your brother. But we're also concluding a book, and we're concluding his life. The word shalom means hello, goodbye, and, peace. But the root word is shalem, completeness. Though 70 years is very short today, I'm starting to get closer to that. But the way he lived was complete. The kindness, the love. And I think I'd be remiss if I did not acknowledge your parents. Because where do we learn all this? Lucky for you. Not everybody has that opportunity. Not everybody's that close with their siblings. I mean, I know siblings that just don't talk over the silliest things. But your parents were great examples. There's a beautiful expression in Hebrew. It says, Dalifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand. My guess is you and your brother had a great deal of respect for your parents, and they had a great deal of respect for you. When you walk out of this room, you know, one could say we can remember him in a lot of different ways. My suggestion to you is listen to what the family and friends said. Be kind. Be nice. Have fun. and laugh as much as you can and love with all your heart. And when you do that, his memory will not only be for a blessing, but it'll be for action. We conclude with the memorial prayer. I ask you to please rise. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, Im Keroshim V'Torim Kezor Harakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Nachum Ben Myron, Shalach Leolamo, Ba'al Harachamim Yasirehu B'Seiter Kanafav Leolamim, B'Yitzror B'Yitzror HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'Yanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo V'Nomar Amen. We can read together in the inside of the service folder. El Malei Rachamim, O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Neal Lawrence Barg, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession. May his repose be peace. As we all say, Amen. Please be seated.
This does conclude the service here at the chapel. The family will receive condolence calls at the Continental Restaurant today from 2 until 5 p.m. That's 788 South Buffalo Grove Road in Buffalo Grove. Again, today from 2 until 5 p.m. Interment will take place at West Lawn Cemetery, that's 7801 West Montrose Avenue in Norwich. The procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please keep in mind a few safety features while in the procession. Keep your bright headlights on at all times. Put your emergency blinkers on. Attach the orange funeral sticker to the passenger portion of your front windshield. And we'll also attach a flag to the roof of your car. And please stay as close as safety permits to the car in front of you. The following people have been selected to serve as pallbearers. When I call your name, if you please come forward. Dan Abrams, Stuart Shipp, Marshall Shipp, Hal Lash, Norman Lash, and Randy Shipp. At this time, I would ask that everyone please rise as the family are escorted from the chapel.